National Signing Day. Right now it's the 13th. National Signing Day is going down in 8 days. We'll be all over the place. Some of us will be in Nashville. Some of us will be in Fort Lauderdale. We'll have our team sites covering it all over the country. We'll have our national insiders covering it all over the country. But I don't want you having to wait. And quite frankly, I think what you want to know right now is not so much just what's on the front page of 247sports.com. And you don't want to know what's available for free out there. You want scoop. You want intel. You want an edge so that you can sound smarter at the water cooler. I know that because I know you guys, and I want those same things. So here's what I did. I called Uncle Steve earlier today, and I said, Wiltfong, I need something from you. I need to squeeze that sponge, and I need some juice. I need some drip on the show tonight. Can you deliver it? And he said, yes. And then he saluted. I didn't require the salute, but I appreciated it. And so we bring on 24/7 Sports National Director of Recruiting, recent Chalice of Supremacy recipient. Congratulations, sir. Steve Wiltfong, how are things in Indianapolis tonight? Does the sun set there as early as it does in Nashville?
Well, an hour later. I think we set at the same time. Just an hour later here in the future, brother.
Yeah, not fun. Not fun at all. Okay, so I'm looking at my rankings over here. Not shockingly, Bama's number one in the country. We're sitting here 8 days away from National Signing Day. I got Georgia there. Notre Dame is still right there in position. If you have to handicap this thing right now, is anyone catching Bama?
I don't think so. I think that they have it all but locked up. Excuse me, I need to put some juice in my chalice there. I think they have it all but locked up right now when you look at what's already in the fold and what's still potentially out there for Nick Saban and company. When you look at guys like 24/7 Sports composite 5 stars, defensive lineman James Smith, edge Quay Russaw. They're still in the sweepstakes for Desmond Ricks. Jordan Hall is a defensive lineman they're swinging at. I crystal balled Damari Brown, a top 247 cornerback from the Sunshine State to Alabama today. So there's a lot of elite talent still strongly considering Alabama down the stretch here as they try and lock up Nick Saban's 10th number one recruiting class since coming to Tuscaloosa.
Hey, are you surprised right now? I mean, I got Miami 8th, I got Florida 9th, and I've got Florida State down here 17th. Is that the way that you kind of expected things to land in Florida? Or, I mean, are we going to be sitting here a little over a week from now and talking about Miami making huge moves or Florida making huge moves? Because, I mean, they still got uncommitted kids down there with a bunch of those stars next to their name, do they not?
Yeah, coming into the cycle, if you had asked me what order they would have finished in, I would have told you that I thought Miami would finish with the highest class, Florida 2 and Florida State 3. But I would have said that I think all three are top 20 and that Florida and Miami have top 10 potential. The Gators still have a chance to finish in the top 10 with what they have on the board. And Miami, they're trying to push into the top 5 with what they have on the board. And a lot of that Miami-Florida discussion on who's going to finish the highest, they got a couple pivotal head-to-heads against each other. Joshua, you got 5-star offensive tackle Samson Okunlola from Massachusetts, visited Florida for the second time in a few weeks this past weekend, but he has Mario Cristobal and Coach Maribel in his home right now as we hang out on Late Kick. Miami is the Cristobal favorite, but we're not sleeping on the Gators there. On the flip side, top 247 running back Mark Fletcher visited Florida this weekend. I logged the 24/7 Sports crystal ball forecast in favor of the Gators for Fletcher, but we're not sleeping on Miami there. He may not even sign during the early signing period, but there's a lot of strong buzz for Florida right now. But we've seen Miami flip the script on the Gators. We've seen the Gators flip the script on the Hurricanes with Jaden Rashada recently. These teams have gone head-to-head. It was Cormani McClain for Miami, Jaden Rashada for Florida. They've already had some monster battles against each other, and seeing those two programs lock horns on the trail has been fun and fascinating so far.
Wiltfong, I mean, Florida State ended the season playing better football than either of those teams. Like, where does Florida State fall in the recruiting pecking order right now?
Well, I think, again, I think this is a program that its trajectory is on the way up with the way that they're recruiting and with the way that they had their season. And look, they're in the mix for some key guys here down the stretch. Maybe they flip an Andy Jean, a receiver committed to Florida right now. Maybe they flip him. He could take an official visit to Tallahassee this weekend. They're trying to flip Cedric Baxter from Texas, although I think that might be a long shot. They're going head-to-head with Alabama for Damari Brown right now, with Miami hanging around in there. So they're trying to flip Conrad Hussey, a top 247 defensive back from South Florida, from Penn State, who is on campus this weekend. So I think that Florida State's in on the right guys too. But then, Josh, you look ahead in 2024, they have a top 5 class right now. And that's really where you see good seasons resonate, is on the next recruiting class. It could help you finish strong, but they're off and running in 2024. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way they opened up that season in New Orleans and got a statement victory against LSU.
I've been around you on signing day, and I've watched you try and read the tea leaves on these state of Florida kids and these state of Florida signing classes. And I don't blame you for constantly being on edge, because I would be 10 times more on edge than you, because I'd be worried either someone has lied to me or someone is going to make an NIL move and render everything about the past 2 years irrelevant. So scale of 1 to 10, what's the paranoia scale as we're headed into this signing day about some of these battles down in Florida?
I think that I never think I truly know what's happening. So every time you report something, you do it with the caveat of knowing that this information could either be a little off or it could quickly change and make you look incredibly wrong. I mean, it's look at Kamani McLean. That was one where most assumed that he was going to Florida, and then he pops on the Miami hat, and Miami had been working that one behind the scenes for a few days and had that one locked up. So sometimes you don't catch the pivots or the new information. And so when you're bringing it to the readers, it's incorrect. So certainly with NIL and the infrastructure some of these programs have in that regard, and the pace that they're going at with that, these recruitments can change on a dime in the last second if that's what the young man is most important with his decision. So yeah, sometimes things change quickly, and the information that was right 3 minutes earlier is wrong.
Well, see, that's where I have to come in, because you know that I wave the Wiltfong flag here, and I will defend your good honor. When you take the high road, I'll take the low road for you. So sometimes I got to do the whack-a-mole to some of the viewers and let them know all of the information that was available with the best sourcing network in America, which I think you have, because I've sat at dinner before and watched the calls you take. It wasn't good enough, because no one can predict a swing that sometimes happens, especially in the climate we're in today. Okay, I got a question written on a piece of paper right here. Someone asked me this earlier today, so if you get mad at it, blame my friend, don't blame me. What is wrong with Texas A&M recruiting? That's what the people want to know, Wiltfong. Is there anything wrong with A&M recruiting?
Absolutely not. I think Texas A&M has one of the best recruiting classes in the country. It's just a smaller class. They have 12 commits. But Joshua, when you look at my favorite statistic in recruiting, which is average ranking per commit, which tells you truly how talented your class is, Texas A&M ranks number 4 nationally in that regard. So this is another terrific class for the Aggies. It was always going to be a smaller haul for them after the monstrous size class that they took last year. But when you look at the top of the class and the elite players that they have in the fold and the couple guys that they're still in on down the stretch, they're recruiting to a standard of incredibly talented players. Now, people should be asking a lot of them on the field with the way they've recruited. Last year, people make a big deal of that number 1 class, but they had 3 top 10 classes before that. So this is a roster full of top 10 classes and highly average ranked commit players. And so this is another good class for Texas A&M that kind of meets the standard that they've been recruiting at. Now it's bringing it together on the field with more consistency, because they've really only had one great year under Coach Fisher so far.
Well, here's the other thing, man. Like, you've known this for a while. I've gotten to get out on the road a little bit more. And on these Friday nights when we're in town, I like to meet with some of the staff. It's not always coaching staff. Sometimes it's off-field, it's support staff, it's player personnel types. And you learn about some of the biggest moves that happen in this industry that are not reported. We know when coordinators move. We know when someone hires a new head coach. But Wiltfong, you rarely have big flashy headlines when director of player personnel types move. But in reality, man, that's huge. Like, you had some movement from A&M to Oregon this past cycle. This paid huge dividends in one place and left a huge void in another place. So it's always interesting, because you never have time to talk about it publicly, and quite frankly, it wouldn't generate enough traffic anyway, but there's a lot of that happening. Okay, so you're in touch with pretty much everyone on the face of this planet when it comes to recruiting. People talk about Bama all the time. People talk about Georgia all the time. Give me some underrated recruiting staffs right now that you think are really doing big things. And it doesn't always have to be ranked in the top 5. Relative to what their expectation levels should be, who are some big-time staffs out there right now?
Oh, man. I mean, I think right now you look at TCU, the way that they've capitalized on the momentum of making the college football playoff. They have a top 20 class right now, could ultimately end up being in the top 15. I think Texas Tech, Joey McGuire, and that first-year staff at Texas have really been able to capitalize on all the relationships that they have with the high school scene in the Lone Star State. They have the number 23 recruiting class in the country right now, Josh. I think that's very impressive. And so those are two classes that really stand out to me when you look at the top 25 right now. Certainly, I think Oregon, from Mario Cristobal to Dan Lanning, I think from a recruiting standpoint, you went from maybe the best head coach or the most active head coach recruiter in the country in recruiting, and Dan Lanning and company. They have the Ducks in on some very elite players here down the stretch, and they're going to be as fun as anybody to watch here leading up to the early signing period, whether they win some of these battles or lose some of these battles. I know we were going to talk about who could finish with the number 1 recruiting class in the country, and I had to make sure Oregon was mathematically not alive when I started punching some of the names that they were in on the 24/7 Sports Class calculator as they try and flip the number 1 offensive tackle in the country, Caden Proctor from Iowa. I think Alabama's still in there for Proctor as well. I should have mentioned him in the Alabama segment as another guy they could close on. David DJ Hicks committed to A&M right now, but he's taken 4 visits to Oregon. Oregon's still in the mix, still communicating with Peyton Bowen. And some of these guys are long shots. Mateo Uagalele, the 5-star defensive lineman from California that I like Ohio State's position for now, but maybe I like Oregon's position for more as he nears his college decision. Those are a bunch of 5-star recruits that Oregon's still in on here as the cycle comes to a close.
What do you think I know it's tough to say right now. I'm trying to pull up the team rankings. So right now, given that all those guys are still on the board for them, what do you think the ceiling is on this class for Oregon?
Well, I think that when I plugged all those guys in, that they have a realistic chance of finishing with realistic, I don't know if that's the right word. They have a mathematical chance of finishing with a class that finishes in the top 4 when you compare scores from the cycle before. Like they could hit with over 300 points, which is what the Buckeyes had in the number 4 spot last year, which would be a hell of a first class and really would be extremely top heavy with some very elite players if they're able to pull that off. They already have 5-star quarterback Dante Moore committed, Josh. He took a visit to UCLA last weekend. Everything I'm hearing today, I still think he sticks with Oregon. We'll see what happens over this next week. And then Dan Lanning's in home with 5-star defensive lineman David DJ Hicks right now and his family as they try and flip him from A&M. So a lot of big in-home visits going on right now as we record this show here. I wonder if they're watching Late Kick in these houses right now.
Well, listen, if they're not, they should. Man, I assume you see some of the same stuff I see. Like I've got coaches texting me their itineraries this week, and it's insane. Now, fortunately, they don't have to go commercial like you and I do. We're down here with the normal folks. But, man, I saw one of them text me a couple of days ago, 9 states, multiple stayovers, not even just going back to campus that night. And you're trying to bowl prep. You're trying to hire new coaches. Some of these guys are. I complain about it for them because I know it does them no good to complain about it publicly. But, man, behind the scenes, you probably get a lot of that. You probably get a lot of that steam being blown off in your ear too, don't you?
That's why a lot of these guys love when they get to travel with the head coach. Like if it's their recruit and the head coach is going in-home and you're a high-profile university, that head coach is not waltzing through the airport flying commercial with the likes of Wiltfong. They're on the private jet. They're in, they're out. That's the life right there when you're recruiting here down the stretch with the head coach on the private jet. And you kind of take for granted someone like me that's so immersed in recruiting here at the end of the cycle. You get on the phone with a college coach or something, and they tell you they're back home because they got a bowl game. They're practicing for that, and you just kind of forget that that's something else they got to do, which is game plan, make sure they're keeping in touch with their own players, practicing. People forget that just because they're already on the team, they don't just see them at practice. There's more to it, and so there's that the juggling act of keeping up with your players, recruiting, seeing your family when you can, and travel. And this is a hard time on coaches, and I know a lot of people appreciated the lead into your show the other day.
I got to ask you about Deion Sanders. A lot of his traffic's probably going to be in the transfer portal this first cycle. What have you heard, either just from folks out there or just in the industry? It's reverberated a lot. I've gotten feedback about it. But in recruiting, what do you expect the immediate impact to be out there?
Well, I think that anytime you get a phone call from Deion Sanders, it moves the needle. And it's just the call you want to take, no matter how long you've really been committed. I would say most prospects would be excited to get on the phone with him and hear what he has to say. And then he's one of the more electric, charming, charismatic guys in college football, as you know, that seems to be very eloquent in his message for the direction he wants to take this football program. And you look at Jackson State and what he was able to do there, taking a program that was not a traditional winner by any stretch and turning it into a must-see event where their attendance skyrocketed under Coach Sanders. I believe they averaged over 50,000 fans per game. That would rival a lot of Power 5 programs there. The way that they offered, they were not afraid to offer blue chip prospects. There were a lot of times where I was tagged in Jackson State offers. I think now at Colorado, and obviously they landed some guys at Jackson State, right? We were there together when Travis Hunter flipped. I was at the All-America Bowl when Kevin Coleman announced for Jackson State. They beat Georgia for the number one JUCO corner in the country 2 cycles ago. At Colorado now, there's a lot more resources than there was at Jackson State from a facility standpoint and support standpoint that I think he'll be able to showcase as part of his pitch to prospects about why the player development at Colorado will be second to none. He's hired a great staff. A lot of guys on his staff at Jackson State were former NFL coaches that coached some of the best players in the league. So they had the pedigree at Jackson State, in addition to just the pizzazz and lightning rod that Coach Sanders was in the corner office. There was a lot of substance on his coaching staff. And now at Colorado, he's already made some terrific hires with his coordinators, guys that are well-respected, guys that are proven play callers and developers of talent. Then he's also added some really exciting recruiting pieces to it. Nick Williams, you talk about Texas A&M, you talked about some off-field recruiting guys. Nick Williams was one of the best off-field recruiters in college football for the last 4 or 5 years, helped Georgia and Texas A&M win some monster recruiting battles. He's getting his first opportunity to coach on the field at Colorado as their defensive line coach. I think he went out and hired one of the top potential off-field guys in Corey Phillips, who's got a ton of experience as a high school coach and then working at places like Vanderbilt and LSU. He's been in different atmospheres, different colleges that ask for different things from student athletes. He's gotten a lot of experience in that regard and been around a lot of different kinds of kids. So I think, and he's on the road recruiting for Colorado right now because they don't have a full staff, so he's allowed to go out there. They're going to swing at elite players. They're going to have some exciting portal wins. I wouldn't be surprised if they flip a prospect or two that we're not even talking about right now. And then in 2024, they're going to have some massive recruiting weekends, and we'll see how it goes. I think that they're going to land some big-time guys. It's been a long time since we've seen them have a top 25 recruiting class, Josh, but I'd be pretty surprised if they don't have a top 25 recruiting class in 2024 with the staff that they put together and the excitement that everybody has that I've talked to within the program already.
Did I rehearse any of these questions with you today, yes or no?
I got a heads up on what they were going to be very shortly beforehand.
This is why I love you. I got one more for you. So you mentioned Travis Hunter a second ago. I remember, because I was like 5 feet away from you, when that stuff happened last year, we already, I mean, to take people behind the curtain, we're down in Fort Lauderdale. We're at CBS Sports HQ. And they've already got full, like, big packages. We voiced them over. It's 2 or 3 minute, just grandiose packages celebrating Travis Hunter signing with Florida State. And then all of a sudden, like, I hear you over there go, uh-oh. And then I think we took like a brief commercial break or something, and you said, hey, there may be something happening with Travis Hunter. And it's like, what? Is he going to delay his decision? Is he not signing until the afternoon? No one even had it on their radar, Wiltfong, that what you were intimating at could be, oh, he's going somewhere else. And if there was going to be somewhere else, you would have thought like a Georgia or some major program out of the blue, and then it was Jackson State. Anyway, I'm not asking you if there's going to be a Travis Hunter 2.0 this year, because no one knows. That's the whole point of it being a huge shock. But let's call that a 10 on the 1 to 10 shock scale. How high do you think we'll peg that shock scale this year? You don't have to predict who it is, but how big a surprise or surprises do you think we're in store for early signing day with how things currently are structured in our sport?
Yeah, and the Travis Hunter thing, that morning, just dotting I's and crossing T's, I reached out to a coach at Georgia and said, hey, any chance Travis Hunter flips from Florida State to y'all? And the coach said, hell no. So I thought he was a Seminole, right? And I just was looking in the wrong place because, an hour or so later into the show, you get a text that Travis Hunter's going to Florida or to Jackson State. And it was such a cool story, man. And thankfully it happened right before we went on break. Like our show was split in two. We got that in right before the buzzer. Then we went in the lunchroom to almost like make sure it was like, I have a source saying that Travis Hunter was going to go to Jackson State, but you didn't have it in the Hunter camp. So you were just still kind of waiting. And then you see Pete Thamel report it and you're like, yes, it's accurate. It's good. He's going to Jackson State. And then the whole thing, the whole thing was, it was still one of the biggest stories. I feel like every signing day has something that's super exciting that goes down, even if it's the little things just to add up into the big things. So there'll be some stuff that happens. I don't know if it's like a Caden Proctor or, that's not me predicting that's going to happen. That's just me. I mean, he visited Oregon. He's going down to Alabama. So, and those are kind of the obvious ones. You're asking for the unobvious ones. So there will be something. There always is. And we'll be talking about it on the show.
Sir, I appreciate you staying up. I'm sure you got up like 4:30 Eastern this morning. So unwind, sip some NyQuil from that chalice behind you, and early signing day rapidly approaching. Guys, make sure, if you're not already, subscribe to that 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. That's where that entire multi-hour extravaganza on National Signing Day will be. They just had the 5-star reveal show earlier today. So 247sports.com also a really good resource. Steven, take care. Have a great rest of your evening.
Joshua, Jesse, Colin, thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
See you, brother. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Make sure you like the video and please subscribe to the channel. Not just for me. That's how we keep this entire thing free.